Last time on Shadow Piece, things took an unexpected turn when Fujitora returned from an apparent death. He did look injured, but not because of his battle with Morley. That was a self-induced wound instead. Not only did he regain sight in one of his eyes, he also became multiple decades younger, and despite that, his strength also increased. In a quick confrontation, he overwhelmed the Revolutionary Army commander and killed her with an attack 10 times stronger than the one he used on her last time. And this marked her death, and basically the end for the Revolutionary Army as we knew it. Many soldiers decided to leave and return to lives as civilians after Fujitora made an offer. However, a surprising amount also chose to join the Marines and follow the Purple Tiger to see what kind of future he wanted. And yet, that wasn't even the most surprising thing that happened. After Fujitora strolled across the entire battlefield, he sent everyone, no matter if ally or enemy, back home, so that only the leaders remained. The total numbers of warriors left on the Kamabaka Queendom now was only 6. Fujitora, Green Bull and Akainu, and on the other side, Belobeti, Ivankov and Dragon. While the charismatic, rejuvenated Admiral made himself on the way to join the Fleet Admiral, we won't do the same. Instead, the clock will be turned back to see the second to last battle, Green Bull versus Belobeti and Ivankov. As the commander of the Grand Line and one of the longest members of the army, many assumed Ivankov to be the strongest after Dragon. And that was true until Sabo surpassed him. Belobeti, on the other hand, is often seen as the weakest commander, as she is mostly supporting others with her powers, but in fact she is stronger than Lindbergh, even in his Sulong form. The Marine Admiral also wasn't without controversy. Since his inauguration he was called the Dog of the Fleet Admiral, or even a fraud of an admiral in general, after he returned beaten down from Wano. But all these accusations fueled his growth, and oh boy did this forest grow. Muscles steeled, face clean shaven, and that doesn't only include his beard. He also got himself a buzz cut, and the sword on his hip got replaced by a simple branch. When the forest humans saw the two revolutionaries walk towards them, holding hands, he already got triggered. This was a battlefield, not a walk on the beach. Unbeknownst to him, the battle had already begun on multiple levels. Not only were they mentally attacking him by ignoring him and appearing casually, but they were also boosting each other's powers through hand-holding. "You two will die at my hands!" Pointing at them and shouting with a domineering voice, Aramaki tried to make them fear him, but no reaction. Rather, the two turned towards each other and stared deeply into each other's eyes. "My wrathful forest will drain all of your blood, and then I will present you to a leader." The relatively new admiral tried his best to create at least some form of emotion from the two commanders, but to his surprise, his two opponents started kissing each other, and it was a passionate one. For a moment he was taken aback, but then he unleashed roots at them at high speed. As they crawled across the street like snakes, they started turning black, getting covered in armament haki until they reached their targets. Just like the Red Scabbard struggled against them, Green Bull expected the revolutionaries to do the same, but unexpectedly they got smashed into pieces. It was like some sort of magical barrier surrounded Ivankov and Belobeti, blocking the attack for them without them having to move. Furious about the outcome of his first technique, Aramaki sent out countless more root snakes. In addition to that, he started throwing wooden spears with his hands and shooting acorns with his chest. But everything just smashed into pieces as it collided with the barrier. Meanwhile, the two on the defending side just continued to smooch each other. When they noticed with a glance that an enraged Green Bull was charging towards them, they did one last thing, biting each other's tongues, and with that, preparations that needed time were completed. Both arms of the Woodman were in front of him, and with his power they started to fuse together into one big wood hammer. It was clear that this attack would hit much harder than any of the others that came before it, but the revolutionary duo didn't feel threatened at all. As Green Bull swung down his hammer arm, the wind generated created cracks in the ground, and the barrier shattered in an instant as he came in contact with it. And then it got stopped. Ivankov stuck one of his fingernails into the other arm and injected it with hormones. "Guard flex!" a simple defensive technique from the new Kama Kenpo. By flexing the muscles in the arm with a specific method they came up with, they could increase the defensive capabilities by a multitude. However, that wasn't all. The hormones they injected were a combination of growth and toughening hormones, increasing not only the blocking size but also decreasing the damage received. When Ivankov blocked the attack, Aramaki only heard a "Yeehaw!" before feeling Bello Betty's heel on his face. "Yeehaw indeed, Eva, let's show this fool what we can do." It may have looked like a normal kick, but when Green Bull wiped his nose, he soon realized that something was off. It was bleeding rapidly, almost like in the recruitment battle he had to become an admiral when he first got hit by Sakazuki. "Oh, your nose might be a little too motivated after my pumped up kick." Devil Fruit powers were always a wild card, especially so if your knowledge about them was limited. The databook of the Marines only stated Billo Betty's Pump fruit was capable of encouraging and rallying the other people to awaken their latent potential, but that doesn't appear to be its limit. In this case, as the lady said, she encouraged the blood flow in Aramaki's face, and that resulted in a way that even a simple kick could create a massive nosebleed. A scary power in the hands of a revolutionary that led masses and fights mainly against low to mid-tier fighters. However, in battles at the top, another power stood supreme, namely Haki. After the first shock, Green Bull used his Haki to stop the effect of Billo Betty's attack. As he jumped backwards, a trail of blood could be found on the ground now. Losing this much blood would knock out an ordinary civilian. These people standing here are built different though. And despite being caught off guard for a second, the Admiral used his new position to his best abilities. Out of his blood, flowers started to sprout. At first they were small and ordinary looking, but then they started to get entangled with each other and connected themselves with Green Bull's feet. The stem grew thicker and thicker, making the human grow to over 10 meters in size, and yellow petals grew around his face as well. Howdy, this sunflower will be the opening act for your end. Seeing the angry face of the Admiral surrounded by sunflower petals was a bizarre experience, making Ivankov just spout out the first thing that came to their minds. "Well, I guess now we have 3 beautiful flowers in the battlefield. Yeehaw!" A chuckle could be heard coming from the plant as energy started to gather on every single petal until it formed all around Aramaki and covered his face as well. "Sunflower Beam!" While not a special sounding name, this impromptu technique was incredibly devastating. A laser beam got emitted from the Admiral's face, and everything in its path got eradicated. A path of destruction that was 6 meters wide and dug over 3 meters into the ground rushed towards Eva and Bello. To ensure the safety of their companion, Ivankov started furiously winking at the sunflower beam to slow it down. It would cost too much power to completely negate it entirely, so that was the first tactic. And it was successful. The king of the Kamabaka Queendom significantly lowered down the velocity of the beam, allowing Bello Betty to get out of its trajectory. With another "Yeehaw!" the new Kama also flied out of the way. The firepower of Green Bull should not be underestimated. He might be the youngest admiral, but getting such a high rank spoke for his abilities as well. It only took an instant to get out of the giant sunflower body and switch over to the next battle strategy. Enlarged wooden fists, the bark knuckles. For some reason, Green Bull really toned down his attacks. A grand attack name won't make you win. That was something he learned on his solo trip to the country of samurai, Wano. Each of his punches packed the force of a small bomb, not only destroying the streets, but also the surrounding houses. Bello Betty remained on the defensive, continuing to use her powers mainly to buff up Ivankov. The big-headed commander was supposed to be their main damage dealer in this battle after all. So much was obvious when they injected their second arm with the same hormones they did to their other. 2 giant toughened up arms to go with their already large face. It almost looks like only their body is tiny now. At this point, the commander of the Grand Line and the Admiral were going punch for punch. No dodging, just pure manliness and the Okama way. Connecting their fists with each other's faces, stomachs and everywhere else in the body. Damage continued to pile up, but not enough to knock either side down. With one more clash of fists, both of them got knocked backwards. Green Bull immediately stretched his arms into the sky, and Ivankov pointed one of their fingers towards their face. Neither side had gone all out yet, and now they were preparing the next step. But for now, that is all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this start into this battle. all that's left to be said for now is stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. Pyro, out. Bye!